When my brother called that Tuesday afternoon, I almost ignored it. We hadn't spoken much in weeks, and I figured he wanted another favor. Instead, he asked one simple question before saying, "Hang on a second." The line never disconnected. For the next 3 minutes and 15 seconds, I listened to a conversation I was never supposed to hear. My father asked, "Did she sign the papers yet?" My brother laughed. "Not yet, but she will. She still thinks we're protecting her. She has no idea what we're really taking." My blood turned cold. I quietly started recording. My name is Hannah Foster. I'm 34 years old, and if my brother had remembered to press one red button on his phone, I might have signed away one of the biggest pieces of my future. Instead, he forgot to hang up. For most of my life, my younger brother, Ryan, was my parents' favorite. He wasn't a bad person. He just grew up believing everyone else would clean up the messes he left behind. If Ryan forgot to pay a bill, Dad handled it. If Ryan switched careers for the third time, Mom called it finding himself. Meanwhile, I became the responsible one. I built a career as a commercial architect, bought my own condo, paid my bills on time, and stayed out of family drama whenever possible. After my grandmother passed away the previous year, our family inherited several acres of farmland that had been in the family for decades. The ownership was divided equally. Dad suggested reorganizing everything under what he called a simpler family management plan. "It's just paperwork," he kept saying. "Nothing changes." Ryan repeated the same line every time we talked. "It'll make taxes easier." I wanted to believe them. Still, something about the documents felt rushed. Whenever I asked questions, Dad waved them away. Lawyers already handled everything. So I placed the papers in a drawer and waited. 3 days later, Ryan called while I was leaving work. "Hey," he said cheerfully. "Just checking whether you've signed those papers yet." "Not yet." "Good," he replied. "Actually, hang on 1 second." I heard movement. A door closing. Then silence. I waited. 30 seconds passed. Then a familiar voice broke the quiet. "Dad, did she sign yet?" Ryan laughed softly. "Not yet." Dad sighed. "We need those documents back before she starts asking too many questions." My grip tightened around the phone. Ryan answered. "Relax. She still thinks we're just reorganizing everything." Dad lowered his voice. "Once she signs, the ownership transfers will already be finalized." Ryan chuckled. "She trusts us." Then came the sentence I'll never forget. "She has absolutely no idea what she's giving up." Every muscle in my body went still. I looked at my phone. The call timer was still running. Neither of them realized the connection had never ended. Without making a sound, I opened the voice recorder on my phone and placed it beside the speaker. For another 3 minutes and 15 seconds, I listened. They discussed deadlines. They talked about getting signatures before the next family meeting. And more than once, they repeated that I didn't need to understand the paperwork, only sign it. Finally, someone noticed the call. The line disconnected. I stood alone in the parking garage, staring at the unsigned documents inside my work bag. I didn't call Ryan back. I didn't confront my father. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. Instead, I opened my calendar, found the earliest available appointment with a real estate attorney for the next morning, and booked it before I could talk myself out of it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Ryan's voice again. She has absolutely no idea what she's giving up. By 9 o'clock the next morning, I was sitting across from Michael Lawson, a real estate attorney who had spent more than 25 years reviewing property agreements. He greeted me with a firm handshake. "What brings you in today?" I placed the folder on his desk. "My father and brother say these papers are just routine." He smiled politely. "And what do you think?" "I think I'd like someone who isn't related to me to explain them." He nodded. That's usually a wise place to start. For the next 40 minutes, he read every page without saying much. Occasionally, he'd underline a paragraph or place a small sticky note beside a section. The quieter he became, the more nervous I felt. Finally, he closed the folder. "Miss Foster," he said carefully, "I'm very glad you didn't sign these." My stomach tightened. "Why?" He turned the agreement toward me. The title says this is a management restructuring. He tapped another page farther inside. But several clauses permanently transfer decision-making authority over the inherited property into a family-controlled holding arrangement. I frowned. What does that actually mean? He reached for a blank sheet of paper. Imagine 4 people own a property equally. I nodded. After signing this agreement, you would still appear connected to the property, but major decisions, including refinancing, selling portions, leasing land, or restructuring ownership, could be made under the authority outlined in this document. I stared at him. So, I'd be giving up control? You'd be giving up significant legal rights that you currently have. He slid another page toward me. This clause also limits your ability to withdraw your share without following procedures controlled by the agreement. I felt my heartbeat quicken. No one explained any of this. I'm not surprised. He looked at me for a moment. You mentioned there was something else. I hesitated before playing the recorded phone call. He listened quietly from beginning to end. When it finished, he leaned back in his chair. The recording explains why your instincts told you to pause. He folded his hands. But even without it, I'd recommend exactly the same thing. And what's that? Don't sign anything until every clause is fully explained and revised to reflect what you actually intend. I nodded slowly. That afternoon, Dad called again. So, he asked casually, did you finally sign everything?
No.
A brief silence. My attorney is reviewing the documents. The change in his voice was immediate. Attorney? Yes. Another pause. Then Ryan suddenly joined the call. There must be some misunderstanding. I don't think so. We were only trying to simplify things. Then, I'm sure my attorney will appreciate that explanation. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. For the first time, they weren't asking when I'd sign. They were asking which attorney I had hired. The next morning, a certified envelope arrived from Mr. Lawson's office. Inside was one recommendation that changed every decision I made from that day forward. I opened the certified envelope the moment I got home. Inside was a letter from Mr. Lawson. At the top, one sentence had been highlighted. Do not sign the proposed agreement. Request a complete legal review of every inheritance document before participating in any future discussions. Below that, he had prepared a formal response for me. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't hostile. It simply stated that I would not be signing anything until every owner received an independent explanation of the documents and any future revisions were presented transparently. I signed that letter instead. My attorney mailed it the same afternoon. 2 days later, Dad called. His voice sounded calmer than before. Hannah, maybe we should all sit down together. I'd be willing to do that, I replied. But my attorney will be there. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds.
Finally, he sighed.
That's probably for the best. The meeting took place the following week. For the first time, every page of the agreement was discussed openly. Clauses that had never been explained were read aloud. Questions that had previously been brushed aside were finally answered. Even Ryan looked uncomfortable. At one point, he rubbed the back of his neck and quietly admitted, I guess we should have explained everything better before asking you to sign. I looked at him. You should have wanted me to understand it, not simply trust you. He lowered his eyes. You're right. No one argued after that. The proposed agreement was withdrawn. A new version was later drafted, using plain language and giving every family member the opportunity to obtain independent legal advice before making any decisions. Months passed. Things between us weren't perfect. Trust rarely returns overnight. But something important had changed. No one expected blind signatures anymore. Every conversation about money, property, or legal matters became honest and transparent. As for me, I adopted one rule that I still follow today. No matter who hands me a contract, no matter how much I love them, no matter how urgently they tell me to sign, I read every word. And if I don't fully understand it, I ask someone who does. People sometimes think distrust destroys families. I've learned the opposite. Clear communication protects them. My brother's biggest mistake wasn't forgetting to hang up the phone. It was reminding me that trust should never replace understanding. Because sometimes the smallest accident becomes the biggest warning. And one careful decision can protect not only your future, but also your peace of mind for years to come.